He let me die for his lover. I returned with the truth, but I wasn't the same girl he betrayed. They told me the train would wait. That's what the soldier said when he handed me the papers. You've got time. We'll hold for the medical evac. But when I arrived, blood-soaked and barely walking, the platform was empty. The train was gone, and so was he. I wasn't supposed to be in Redhill that summer. I just graduated from medical school, had offers lined up in Atlanta and Raleigh. But when Grandpa, Colonel Franklin Doyle, collapsed in the heat and refused to leave his failing textile town, I had no choice. Redhill was dying, and apparently, so was he. I didn't come alone. I brought Chase Rayner, my fiancé. His name carried weight in Redhill. His family owned half the mills, most of the land, and every political favor that came with it. We weren't perfect. We weren't even really close anymore. But I thought time and care could fix the cracks. Then I met Marla Quinn. She was local. A factory manager's daughter with wine-red lipstick and a laugh that curdled milk. She volunteered at the hospital, always showed up when Chase did, and never looked at me like I belonged. I wasn't stupid. I saw the way he leaned in when she spoke, the way his hand stayed on her lower back a second too long, the way he stopped smiling when I walked into the room. But I told myself he's stressed. He's just overwhelmed. He's still mine. Then the collapse happened. A 3-car pileup just outside Franklin Textile Works. The heat, the metal, the panic. I ran without thinking. Helped pull a boy out of the wreckage. Tourniqueted a man's leg with my scarf. Lost my shoes somewhere along the gravel. By the time I made it back to the station, my shirt was soaked in blood, not mine, and my hands were shaking. The officer at the post looked at me like a ghost. "Ma'am, I thought you were gone. They left 20 minutes ago." "Who did?" "If you're not following our channel, you might never see it again. But if you're subscribed and use the bell, congratulations. You'll always have access to the most interesting stories whenever you want to watch and listen." The Rayner party. Special transport. Said they couldn't wait for someone who chose heroics over orders. I didn't cry. Not then. Not when I sat on the platform for 2 more hours waiting for nothing. Not when my phone battery died and my name wasn't on the hospital records because the station had forgotten to scan it. Not even when Marla posted a picture that night, her and Chase, wine glasses clinking. Sometimes you have to let go of the past to embrace your future. I went back to Grandpa's house. Sat on the porch swing. Watched the sky dim into black. "So that's how it is," I whispered. "They left me." Colonel Doyle didn't say much. Didn't curse or spit or even raise an eyebrow. He just poured me a glass of bourbon, sat beside me, and muttered, "Let him go, Avery. You've got better wars to win." 3 weeks later, I enlisted. Everyone said it was madness. A girl from medical school choosing boots over surgery. But I needed distance. I needed war. I needed something loud enough to drown out the sound of that train engine disappearing down the track. By the time I was stationed in the South, my hair was shorter, my posture sharper, and the name Avery Kessler carried a weight it never had before. Because I stopped waiting, stopped chasing, stopped caring what Chase Rayner or Marla Quinn thought of the woman they left bleeding on a train platform. And that was just the beginning. Redhill didn't recognize me when I returned. That was the point. Different hair. Army fatigues. A posture that said I don't need your approval or your pity. I wasn't Avery Kessler, the ghost they left behind. I was Sergeant Kessler, certified combat medic, and every step I took through that town was a slow, silent promise. I remember. Colonel Doyle had passed 6 months into my deployment. Left me everything. The house. The land. The deed to what was once the Redhill Medical Exchange. More importantly, his old journal. The kind written in thick black ink. Names. Favors. Scandals. Records the town had forgotten, but he hadn't. It wasn't revenge I wanted. It was clarity, and Redhill offered that in spades. I opened a wellness clinic in the old train station. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone, especially Chase. He showed up on day 3. Tan, well-dressed, teeth too white for someone with that many skeletons. "Avery," he said, like we'd shared coffee the day before. Or should I say, "Sergeant." I didn't smile. Didn't offer a chair. "What do you want?" He glanced around the space, the clean walls, the restored benches, the table stacked with brochures on PTSD support and trauma recovery. "You turned the station into a therapy center?" Thought it'd be poetic. Considering. He flinched. Not visibly. Just a twitch in the jaw. "Look, what happened? It wasn't personal." "You mean you leaving me bleeding on a platform while you toasted champagne with Marla wasn't personal?" "It was chaos. We didn't know. You knew exactly what you were doing." He sighed. "I came to say, I'm glad you're okay." I tilted my head. "That's funny, because you looked a lot happier when you thought I wasn't." He left without another word. Didn't even look back. But that was just the spark. What lit the fire was the invitation. A month later, Redhill's mayor, none other than Dennis Rayner, Chase's uncle, invited me to a local gala, celebrating Redhill's new era of healing. I nearly choked. The invitation included a speaking slot. 10 minutes. They wanted me to talk about resilience. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Marla was there, of course, draped in velvet, fake smile pinned in place. She cornered me near the buffet like a villain from a cheap drama. It's impressive what you've done. Really? I always knew you were the gritty type. Gritty? Oh, don't take it the wrong way. We can't all marry legacy. Some of us have to serve. I leaned in, lowered my voice. You know what I learned in the army, Marla? Do tell. The ones who smile the hardest are usually the ones hiding the most rot. She blinked. Excuse me. You heard me. Then I walked away. The speech? I gave it. 10 minutes. Spoke about trauma, survival, and the way small towns sometimes choose silence over truth. I didn't name names. Didn't have to. Every person in that room heard themselves in my words. 2 days later, a report showed up in my clinic's mailbox. Anonymously delivered. Inside? Financial statements. Tied to Chase. To the mill. To dirty contracts and offshore accounts. The last page was handwritten. You saved lives while they stole futures. Don't let them win. No signature. No return address. But I had a feeling. Faith still lived here. Somewhere. That night, I sat in my clinic alone, flipping through the files with shaking hands. This isn't just justice, I whispered. This is the match. I wasn't just going to heal people now. I was going to burn down every lie they built on my back. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what happens next. It started with whispers. A local blogger posted an article titled, "Is Redhill's war hero even qualified?" Subtle shade. Old photos. Twisted quotes from my first interview after returning home. They called me unstable. Suggested PTSD. Hinted I was using military clout to push a personal vendetta. It didn't take a genius to guess who fed them that narrative. The next day, my clinic was vandalized. Not destroyed. Just marked. Red spray paint across the glass. Not your war. I stared at it for a long time. Then picked up the phone and called the only person I knew would answer. Doyle's Wellness Center, I answered, still holding a rag soaked in vinegar. Sergeant Kessler? The voice was low, male, steady. Who's asking? Staff Sergeant Lincoln Ward. 7th Recon. You treated me in Kandahar. I dropped the rag. Ward? You made it. Alive. Mostly thanks to you. Why are you calling? Pause. Heard you've got enemies. We met 2 hours later at the old gas station on Main. He looked the same, minus a scar that hadn't been there before and eyes that had seen worse since. You're a long way from base, Ward. So are you. You drove here to check on me? I came to tell you. Someone's digging through your records. I froze. What kind of digging? Dishonorable claims. That you falsified reports. Botched treatment. Put others at risk. That's a lie. I know. That's why I came. He handed me a flash drive. Everything they're using. Someone in Redhill's feeding intel to an ex-reporter named Caleb Nash. Never heard of him. You will. He wants a story. And they're giving him yours. That night, I sat in the clinic, alone, watching every file. Every edited email. Every manipulated document. Each one made to make me look like a ticking time bomb at Scrubs. The next morning, I beat them to it. I held a press conference. Invited local papers. Streamed it on social media. And I told the truth. Showed the real reports. Talked about the rescue missions. The amputations. The boy with the spinal wound who coded twice and lived because I didn't wait for orders. I ended with this. My past isn't shameful. What's shameful is people who use power to erase others. People who think legacy should protect them from accountability. I nearly died in this town once. But not again. It worked. Mostly. The vandalism stopped. But the war wasn't over. 3 nights later, my mailbox exploded. Not metaphorically. An actual small charge. Police called it a prank. I called it a message. That same night, I found a note pinned to my door. Stop digging. You're next. I didn't flinch. Didn't panic. I called Lincoln Ward. Still got room in your car? I asked. Always. We drove to the Rayner estate. Middle of the night. No warning. Just headlights and silence. I knocked on the gate until lights came on inside. Chase opened the door himself. His expression said it all, shocked, irritated, caught. Avery, I'm not here to talk. I tossed the drive onto his doorstep. I know everything. You have no proof. Not yet. But I have eyes. And now? I have help. You're digging your own grave. No, I said. I'm digging up yours. As I turned to leave, Marla appeared behind him, wrapped in a silk robe, mascara smudged. You'll never win, she hissed. I already did, I said. I survived you. The thing about small towns? Once the truth leaks, it floods. And Redhill? It wasn't built to survive a storm. I woke up that morning to the sound of my phone buzzing like it was possessed. First came the emails, then the headlines. Rayner's accused of systemic fraud, whistleblower reports under investigation. My face wasn't in the photo, but my words were. The next call was from Veronica Webb, local reporter, friend from high school, and the only person who'd ever gone toe-to-toe with a Rayner in print. You need to come downtown. Why? Because you're no longer just Avery. You're the story now. Redhill's paper ran the story first, but within 48 hours, the Associated Press picked it up. Chase's name appeared in headlines beside the words embezzlement, shell corporations, and generational theft. It was no longer a whisper campaign. It was war. Marla posted a statement on social media, a desperate attempt to salvage the shreds of her brand. I had no knowledge of Chase's financial dealings. I stand for transparency and healing. She paired it with a photo of herself meditating. The comments were brutal. Girl, you were pouring champagne while your fiancé was burying tax fraud. Healing? You sabotaged a veterans clinic. Sit down. She turned off replies within the hour. The town's reactions were mixed. Some people avoided me on the street, not out of hate, but shame. Others left sticky notes on the clinic door. Messages like, I see you now. You gave me my voice back. One was just a single word, scrawled in a shaky hand, survivor. But fame is a slippery thing, and not everyone was clapping. 2 days after the news broke, I found a dead pigeon on my porch. Its wings clipped. A note tied to its leg. Keep quiet. Charming. I bagged it, dropped it off at the sheriff's office, and made eye contact with Deputy Margot Langley. She looked exhausted. You think I should be scared? I asked her. No, she said. I think they should. The next day, the town council scheduled a hearing. A formal review of the mayor's office, the financial ties to Franklin Textile Works, and a vote to remove Dennis Rayner from his position. I didn't plan to speak, but Veronica called me again. You don't need to make a scene, she said. Just stand up. Let them see the face of who they tried to bury. So I did. I wore plain black. No makeup. No military pins. Just me. They called my name. I stood. Said exactly 13 words. My name is Avery Kessler. I told the truth. They couldn't handle it. Then I sat down. It was like someone lit a fuse. The chamber exploded, gasps, murmurs, shouting. Chase tried to stand, but people drowned him out. One man, a mill worker with grease-stained hands and tired eyes, turned around and yelled, You left her to die on a train, Rayner. And she came back with a sword. They had to adjourn early. Later that night, I got a call from Patricia Owens, head nurse at the old Redhill hospital and a woman who had never once spoken to me in all my years coming and going. I was wrong about you, she said. You don't owe me anything. Maybe not. But I'll owe myself if I stay silent. She sent me documents the next day, proof that hospital funds were siphoned to cover private events sponsored by the Rayner Foundation. Weddings. Fundraisers. A political retreat in Aspen. All billed as community health initiatives. I added them to the file. That weekend, Redhill held its fall fair. Normally, Chase and Marla would have hosted the opening ceremony. This year, they weren't even invited. Instead, I was asked to speak. I declined. Suggested Veronica instead. She nailed it. Talked about truth. Community. What happens when you stop silencing the people who've walked through hell just to get heard? As she spoke, I walked through the crowd. Kids ran past me with candy apples. Old men nodded from benches. I wasn't their savior. I was just visible now. Seen for who I'd always been. Someone who stayed when it was easier to leave. And then I saw Chase. Alone. Standing at the far end of the square near the carousel. He looked smaller. Not just physically, but spiritually. Like the years of cover-up had finally caught up to the weight of what he wasn't. He saw me. Didn't approach. Just nodded once. Like maybe this was his version of surrender. I didn't nod back. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. By fall, Redhill had changed. Not completely. The same buildings stood. Same streets. Same small-town gossip. But the power had shifted. For the first time in decades, the Rayners weren't pulling the strings. And people weren't afraid to speak anymore. One morning, a woman named Callie Monroe walked into my clinic. She was pushing 70, wore an oxygen tank and a cardigan covered in cat hair. She handed me an envelope. I used to work for the Rayners. Payroll. Back in the 90s. I looked inside. Ledgers. Handwritten notes. Original drafts of erased contracts. Evidence no one knew still existed. Why now? I asked. Because you reminded me I still had a spine, she said. And I'd like to use what's left of it before I die. The files she gave me were enough to trigger a federal audit. The Rayners' assets were frozen within 2 weeks. Lawsuits started stacking like bricks. Whistleblowers came out of the woodwork. It was no longer my fight. It was everyone's. And me? I took a step back, watched from the porch with a mug in my hand, and the kind of calm I never knew I could carry. Lincoln Ward left in November. His last words? You don't need protection anymore. You sure? I asked. He nodded. Now you're the fire. He left me a box of old army patches. Told me to give them to kids who needed reminding that survival was also service. I did. And just when I thought it was over, I got the call from the Department of Veterans Affairs. We'd like to offer you a position. Doing what? Setting up trauma-informed clinics in rural towns like Redhill, starting with a pilot program in Georgia. I laughed out loud. You sure you want someone with my reputation? Exactly because of it. That night, I stood outside with the stars overhead and asked myself, do I leave? Do I start again? Redhill had nearly broken me, but it had also made me. I called Faith, one of the nurses who treated me the day after the train station. She answered on the second ring. Still breathing? She teased. Barely. Got offered a new beginning. Then take it. It's not that simple. It never is. But if you stay too long where you bled, all you'll ever taste is iron. So I made the call. Accepted the job. Started packing. On my last night in Redhill, I walked to the train station. My clinic was already emptied out. The lights dimmed. The front desk cleaned. But the old bench? Still there. The one I sat on when I realized Chase and Marla left me behind. I ran my hand along the wood. Sat down one last time. A teenager passed by, maybe 17, backpack slung low. He paused. You Kessler? Yeah. My mom said you saved her. From herself. From the meds. From her guilt. I blinked. How's she doing now? She makes pancakes every Sunday. I smiled. Tell her I said thanks. For what? For surviving. He nodded. Then kept walking. I stayed another hour. Just breathing. Watching the tracks. This time, the train didn't leave without me. The train station was quiet. I stood on the platform in boots that had seen more miles than most people's tires. One duffel slung over my shoulder. One envelope in my pocket. The sun was just rising. The tracks stretched east, toward the job waiting in Georgia. Toward the new beginning. But Redhill? Redhill still had one more ghost to offer me. Chase Rayner. He didn't show up like a villain in a movie. No dramatic background music. No booming speech. Just a man in a worn coat, holding a paper bag. Hair messy like he hadn't slept. Avery, he said, voice low. Didn't know if I'd catch you. You didn't, I replied. I brought coffee. I looked at the bag. Didn't take it. What do you want, Chase? I don't know. Closure, maybe. A confession. Bit late for that, don't you think? He nodded. Yeah, it is. He sat on the bench, the same one I'd waited on years ago when he left with Marla in the last train. I messed up. You abandoned me. I know. Silence. Just the wind and the weight of what never got said when it mattered. You loved her. I asked. At the time, yeah, or I thought I did. She made me feel needed. Like I was strong. With you, I always felt exposed. I laughed once. Short and bitter. Because I saw you. Yeah. He rubbed his hands together. I've been trying to figure out how I became that man. The kind who could leave someone bleeding on a train platform. I don't care anymore. You should. Why? Because I think I'm sorry. Truly. You think. I don't have the right words. That's the problem. You always thought words were enough. He looked down. You're leaving, huh? This time, the train is waiting. But only for me. He stood, reached into his coat, handed me an envelope. This is yours. From the day we left. I found it in Marla's drawer a few weeks ago. You expect me to care? I don't expect anything anymore. He walked away without another word. No goodbye. No plea. Just vanished down Main Street like a ghost in the fog. I didn't open the envelope. Not right away. The train came. Doors hissed open. I boarded, found a window seat, and watched Redhill disappear behind me. Hours later, somewhere past the state line, I finally slid my finger under the flap. Inside, a photo of me in med school. Smiling. Confident. Younger. On the back, in Chase's handwriting. You were always too much for this town. I'm sorry I wasn't man enough to see it sooner. No signature. No apology where it counted. I folded it once and tucked it into my journal. Not because I forgave him, but because I'd survived him. Georgia was humid. Green. Busy. The new clinic was a mess when I arrived, files everywhere, broken HVAC, half a team undertrained. It was perfect. I started from scratch. Hired vets. Single moms. Rebuilt from the rubble. They called us the Haven. Not because it was catchy, but because for people like me, survival had to mean something. A year later, I got a letter. No return address. Inside, a newspaper clipping. Redhill rebuilds, former textile hub turns to community development. Below that, a sticky note. You were the match. The rest of us just finally lit the fire. That night, I looked out the window of my new apartment. No train tracks. No porch swing. But peace? Yeah, finally. And that was enough. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it too. Also, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? What city and country? And have you, or someone you know, ever been through something like this?